Alright guys, this is the moment we have been waiting for. The brand new episode of Marvel Spider-Man Maximum Venom. This was episode 5 titled Generations. And this is the penultimate episode. There's only one episode after this, and I have to say, this was an amazing episode. I absolutely loved it. Way better than the last episode we got, with Spider-Man Unmasked. I mean, the episode was okay, but it was definitely nowhere near as good as this episode, because in this episode we got the return of the Jackal, the return of Norman Osborn, the birth of the Dark Goblin, and so much more. So that is exactly why we are here, to break this down, everything that happened in this episode and what may be happening in the next episode, the season finale and series finale, as it has been confirmed that it is the series finale. So anyways, guys, without further ado, let's jump right into this episode, as we start off by seeing what life is like with Dr. Kurt Connors as the principal of Horizon High. And it's rough. He's a strict principal. He's got all these projects due, these school uniforms and all this stuff, and things are just not going good in this school life here. And we even see that Grady here, he's working on one of the projects that Connors has had them working on, and he actually burns a hole through the floor because of the chemicals he was using, and then somehow the whole building starts falling apart, but luckily everybody does get out safe and everybody gets saved. But then after this, a really interesting moment here is that we get to see Anya meeting up with her older sister Maria, who is now working at Horizon High. And we knew about this the past couple days. A lot of you have been talking about this in the comments, about Maria, Anya's sister, what kind of role she would play, and well, I'll get into it more later, but let's just say she's not all that she seems here. Then things really get going here when we see that Peter finds some of the Jackal serum in one of the drones that has been flying around the school under the control of Dr. Kurt Connors. So he takes us to go to Gwen, because she's been doing some research trying to find out more about her uncle. So she and Peter, they go to investigate. And that is when we see Spider-Man and Ghost Spider. They go into this warehouse, and then they infiltrate this secret Jackal lab here and basically break in. And first they find these cloning tubes, which of course, because the Jackal is known for cloning. But then all of a sudden they get attacked by these goblin sharks, which we saw that in the teaser trailer. They're pretty cool, not anything that interesting. Pretty much just like they needed this heroes to fight something, so there it was. And then during this battle, Gwen actually sees the Jackal, and then he runs away for a little bit. And then once the Spidey and the Ghost Spider actually do eventually end up defeating the Goblin Sharks, knocking them into those cloning tubes and I guess dissolving them, which is kind of messed up. They do go after the Jackal, but unfortunately he does escape, and the whole lab actually starts flooding, so things definitely aren't going well here. But Gwen is able to get a quick look at her uncle's research on the computer there. Not that good of a look, but a little bit, so she knows a little bit of information. But meanwhile, while all of that was going on, we had Miles and Anya. They were investigating Dr. Kurt Connors, and they see that he was stumbling through the halls, and then he enters this secret lab within the teacher's room. And then he gets injected with the serum, and then we see that giant pod again, and we're like, ooh, what's going on there? So then Miles and Anya, they actually see that Connors has the Venom seed in there in that secret lab, so things definitely start getting crazy here. So they need to infiltrate this secret lab, and they do, and then that's where they find out that the DNA from the Venom seed is actually being extracted. And then Maria shows up, and Anya's like, oh, hey, sis, like, what are you doing here? And then all of a sudden she tases them, because turns out, oop, she evil. So that is definitely not good at all. But then this is basically the climax of the episode, the big moment where Spider-Man and Ghost Spider end up in this secret lab as well, where Miles and Anya have been captured. And basically everything gets revealed here. This is the big moment of the episode as we find out that the Jackal's serum has now been combined with the symbiote DNA from the Venom seed. And the big bad Norman Osborn is officially revealed here. It looks like he's missing a hand, actually. He's completely beat up. He looks like he's almost dead here. And now that symbiote that has been created from the Jackal serum and the symbiote DNA combination has now been given to Norman Osborn. It drips onto him, and then the Dark Goblin is born. And then he goes on this whole, of course, classic villain telling the hero of his whole plan and backstory and everything, and he explains how he hired Dr. Connors to carry out his plans because he was going to give him the serums to help him with his lizard problems if he helped him, and Norman was behind the whole Max getting fired thing. That was his big plan, and now he is here. He's the Dark Goblin, and he wants vengeance. So things definitely get crazy here, especially when we find out, which we actually found out in one of the teaser trailers as well, that Norman has created this new team of villains, not quite a Sinister Six team. I believe there's only 5 members here. 4 members, actually. But this consists of the Jackal, Tarantula, Swarm, and Dark Goblin. So each villain is specifically meant to do a one-on-one with each specific hero because they have some sort of special connection to each spider person. And Tarantula is actually Maria. So now she's a full-on villain, and she's taken on the role of Tarantula, which is really interesting because in the comics, Tarantula is... well, let's just say the character is very, very different from what we got here, but it was still definitely very cool to see her here included. But Dark Goblin was actually really cool, a lot cooler than I expected, because from what we saw in the teaser trailer and sneak peek, I thought it looked cool, but I didn't know we were going to go full-on Green Goblin mode with the glider, with the pumpkin bombs, plus he also has a cool tail as well, which was pretty interesting. So he's actually really, really cool here. But then we also get a moment here with Dr. Kirk Connors as he finds out from Norman Osborn that the cures that he's been getting were only temporary and there was no permanent cure. But things have worn off now, so now Connors has officially turned back into the lizard. So, oh no, but he actually escapes and just goes off and we never see him again in the episode. But we will be seeing him again in the next episode, because the official synopsis for the final episode has been officially released. So I will be making another video about that we'll be releasing later today, going over the whole lizard thing that is talked about there. So don't worry, Lizard will be returning in the next episode and will be playing a big role as well. But then Harry Osborn shows up as well to battle his father, and we get a really cool Hobgoblin versus Dark Goblin here. I love how Dark Goblin ripped out the sword from his back, and first of all, his sword just looked really cool. It was a very goblin-y symbiote sword looking thing. So we had the Goblin sword versus Hobgoblin's fire sword, so that was really cool to see. But then we do also get to see the kind of split off 1v1 battles of the villains here, as we find out that Swarm is actually Miles's dad, which is really interesting. And I know a few of you were actually talking about that in the comments on one of my last Maximum Venom videos, and we're theorizing about that, whether he was actually Miles' father or maybe his uncle. So you guessed it, and you were right. So good job to you. I never would have come up with a theory like that. But this was actually a really cool moment in the episode. And basically he was doing this for him because he wanted to protect his son, but he thought that this Spidey was a danger because he was always attracting villains to the neighborhood. But then it turns out that this Spider-Man hero was his son. So things change, and then he kind of just goes and flies off into the air, and that's the last we see of him. So hopefully he will be returning in the next episode. I'm not completely sure if he will, but it definitely would make sense if he did, to tie up all the loose ends there and end off that story. So I really do hope we see him again. But then we also get another big reveal here, as it turns out that Maria was not Maria. It was actually the chameleon the whole time, which was really cool. And we only saw the chameleon for like 2 seconds here, but it was still really interesting to see his inclusion here. And then finally we see that the Jackal's plan is actually that he wants to turn Gwen into a Jackal as well, so that he's not the only Jackal in existence. But then Miles does show up and beat him up, battle the Jackal and take him down, and then the Jackal finally gets sent to jail, so that ends there. We got some closure there. It's nice to see his return as well, because he was like the first main villain of the series. So now he's finally behind bars, and that's really cool to see. Then the Dark Goblin takes in a whole bunch more serum, and then he really gets hulked up here with all these spikes, and he's got these spider leg attachments too. But then finally all of the spiders do unite and defeat the Dark Goblin and basically destroy the Goblin symbiote, and now Norman Osborn is officially back to normal. We do see him kind of just slump down in the pod there. So I'm not sure if he's going to go to prison or not, or if we'll see him in the next episode. Who knows? Maybe he's like forgotten everything. They could be doing something similar to what we saw on Ultimate Spider-Man at the end of that series, where after everything was said and done, Norman Osborn just completely forgot about everything that happened, and then things just went on normal with him. So I'm not sure if that's what we'll be seeing here, or if we even will see that happening. So hopefully we see him return as well. But that is pretty much the end of the episode. Things kind of get back to normal. Max is now reinstated, and he is now the principal of Horizon High once again. So things are going good. Life is happy again. Anya calls her sister and makes sure she's okay and everything. And life is good. And Peter basically realizes that he couldn't have done any of this without his friends. And, you know, this ending of the episode really made it seem like it was a series finale. So I'm interested to see how the next episode is going to end the series, because this episode did really feel like a series finale. And honestly, if there was no 6th episode, I'd be cool with that. I think this was a good enough ending. But we are getting that 6th episode, and we are getting some Venom and symbiote stuff in here with the whole Maximum Venom thing. And like I said, I will be talking about that more in my next video. So definitely stay tuned for that, guys. But anyway, this was pretty much everything that happened in this episode of Marvel Spider-Man Maximum Venom Generations. This was an absolutely great episode. I loved how we saw the return of all these amazing villains, like the Jackal, like Norman Osborn, like Chameleon, Swarm. It was just a really cool episode, and I loved how all the heroes united at the end, and I can't wait for this 6th episode. It's going to be an epic, all-out, huge symbiote hero battle. I can't wait for it. But anyways, guys, let me know down in the comments below all of your thoughts on this episode, and of course your theories for the 6th and final episode of Marvel Spider-Man Maximum Venom. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and hit the subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the Marvel life.